You're scrolling, half bored, half numb, thumb doing its own thing, and then you see it. Someone's engagement on a post. Someone's I just hit six figures. Someone's promotion, transformation photo, perfect little morning routine with their little caption, oh, just being consistent. And within about 3 seconds, it happens. A little drop in your stomach. The voice that goes, you should be further along by now. And what's annoying is, you could have been feeling absolutely fine 2 minutes ago, but now this comparison has brought you down. In this episode of Let's Talk Confidence, we're going to explore the comparison trap, how it's affecting your life, and what you can do about it. Welcome to Let's Talk Confidence, the first and last place you need to go to build long-lasting confidence. I'm your host and coach, Josh Sutton. Please do give the podcast a follow, drop a quick review, and share this episode with someone who you know who compares themselves to other people all the time and is really struggling because of it. Helps us grow and helps build more people with confidence that actually lasts. All right, let's dive in. Let me start by saying this. Comparing yourself to other people is not some personality flaw. It's not you being too sensitive or being broken. It's normal. Humans have always compared. If you lived in a tribe of 100 people and you were the slowest runner or the weakest hunter or the least liked, that mattered. Your brain learned to watch where you stood because where you stood affected whether you stayed safe, literally, physically safe. And the problem is, your brain, my brain, still runs these old patterns, which really aren't suited for the modern day world. Because you're not comparing yourself to 10 people in your immediate world anymore. You're comparing yourself to thousands, millions, every day in your pocket. And not the real versions of them either. And you know this. It's the edited versions, the best moment of the year versions. And then you wonder why you feel behind. Here's what's really happening when you're letting comparison ruin your day. You'll be taking your behind the scenes, your doubts, messy progress, boring Tuesdays, your imperfect decisions, your mistakes, and you're holding it up against somebody else's best version. Their wins, their headlines, their perfect photos, polished life. You don't see the debt, the anxiety, the sacrifices, the fights behind the scenes, the 10 failed attempts, the family pressure, the therapy, setbacks, the luck, the help, the team behind them. But I get to see all of this. I'm in a very privileged position where I get to see both sides of this. I can't tell you how many times I've seen somebody's Instagram post in the morning saying how blessed they are, only to have them crying in a coaching session later on in the same day saying that they don't feel like their life is going anywhere. It's put me in a very strange position, I'm going to be honest with you, where I now call BS on most people's posts. Look, the reality is that some of it is probably quite truthful, but this is the trap. It's not that people's presented selves are 100% false. The worst lies are half-truths. And that's the point. You're missing half the story. And it's almost never an equal balance between you missing some of the positive and some of the negative. You're getting pretty much all of the positive and you're missing out the struggles and difficulties. You see your life and all of the highs and lows, the valleys, the troughs, the good, the bad, and you assume that what everyone else presents, that they don't go through that either. It's just you. And it's quite a hard habit to get out of. Because logically, we know that comparisons aren't good for us, and yet we still find ourselves doing it. And the sooner we can learn that this isn't a good game to play, the better. I really learned this I began to learn this when I was in a gym when I was 19. I'd been lifting for a few years, and I was getting to a pretty good place. I didn't know there was so much protein in Budweiser. Who knew? And there was a moment when I was 19, I was in the gym, and I was looking around, and I thought, I'm the biggest, strongest guy in here. I can tell you, that's quite a moment for a 19-year-old. Within 5 minutes, The biggest bloke I've ever seen in my life walked in and started bench pressing with, it was like warming up with my personal best. And that smug feeling I had lasted all of 5 minutes, and then I left the gym, tail between my legs. And I realized that day there's always going to be somebody bigger than me, stronger than me. There's always going to be somebody faster, richer, smarter, more successful. There's always going to be something. And if you build your confidence on being ahead, you're quite simply signing up to a game that you cannot win. Even if you become world champion in one area, in every other area of life, someone's going to be doing it better than you. And if you live on social media, you're going to be exposed to this all day long. Whenever you have an achievement, someone else will be doing it better. And this is the part that a lot of people miss. Comparison, it doesn't just make you feel bad, it changes your entire behavior. It quite quietly makes you a worse version of yourself. And I'll give you the 3 most common ways that I see it destroy people. So first, it creates a form of paralysis. You stop trusting your own direction because you keep looking around rather than focusing on your own journey. You see somebody else's strategy and yours suddenly feels wrong. You see someone else's content and now yours feels inadequate or boring. You see someone else's progress and now yours feels slow. So you start tweaking, overthinking, second guessing. And what looks like being methodical or being thoughtful is really just you being stuck in this comparison loop. Comparison keeps you busy, but it doesn't move you forward. It just keeps you around in this cycle. Secondly, it kills consistency. And this is massive. If you keep measuring your early stage against someone else's further on stage or later stage, your small steps just start feeling pointless. You'll take one step and you'll look up and you'll see someone else 10 steps ahead and you think, what's the point? Why bother? I'm never going to be there. So you stop. You start and stop, or you go really hard for a week and then vanish for a month. And look, it's not because you're lazy. It's because you've mentally made your progress feel insignificant. And the irony is, wherever you're up to, there's probably somebody else that looks at your progress and goes, oh, what's the point? I'll never be there. But you've never recognized that because you've already moved on, comparing yourself to the next person. Comparison doesn't just steal joy, it really ruins momentum. And third, it turns you into a bit of a performer. You start doing things because they look impressive, not because they're right for you. Your goals start morphing into whatever gets praise, whatever gets approval, whatever makes you look like you're winning. And look, you can build a whole life like that. A life that looks great on the outside, on paper, on social media, but just feels weirdly empty because none of it came from your values or what's important to you. It was just emerged from your insecurity. And that's why some people can hit really big goals and still feel very unsettled and unfulfilled. They didn't build a life, they built an image of a life that they thought would be accepted. So, what to do? Because the answer isn't to never compare again. You're human. You will compare. The answer is to change what comparison really means and change the rules you live by. So I'm going to give you just a very simple way of doing this. It's not fluffy, it's practical, and it's the stuff I use with myself and with my clients all of the time when I can see that comparison is starting to really ruin their lives. So step 1, you got to reset the reference point. Your brain needs a fair comparison. Right now, you're comparing your whole life to someone else's best moments, which, quite frankly, is madness. The only fair reference point is you. You last month. You last year. You before you started trying. That's the only comparison that builds confidence. And if you want a tool, start with a progress log. Once a week, write down 3 things: 1 win, 1 lesson, 1 piece of evidence that you are moving forward. Something concrete. It could be a number, it could be a result, it could be a feeling, a behavior you did differently. Maybe it's a conversation you had that you may have avoided before. That's a huge one. These matter because when you're scrolling and your brain says you're behind or you're failing or you're going slow, You can open the log and remind yourself, I'm not where I want to be yet, maybe, but I'm not where I used to be either. I'm not who I used to be either. Step two, you got to choose your personal average. Most people compare themselves to someone else's peak, as we've said, their best day, biggest win, perfect post, etc. You've got to stop doing that. Define your baseline instead. What does a good week look like for you right now? Not for someone with different circumstances or different bank account or time or different levels of support, etc., etc. You. And then your job is to beat your average by a tiny bit. Not 50%, tiny bit, 1%, just a tiny bit. This is how confidence gets built, step by step, not with a giant leap. It's stacking these small wins until your identity changes. And look, if you're building a business, maybe your average is 1 solid post a week and 2 sales conversations. If you're building fitness, maybe it's 2 runs a week. If you're building confidence socially, maybe it's 1 new conversation. Your average is the game. Your average. Beat that. Stay in your lane. Step 3, turn the comparison into a question, not an entire verdict. When you see someone doing a better job than you, your brain will most likely automatically go, I'm behind, I'm failing, etc. I'm not good enough. That's not the truth. It's just underlying fear, the underlying story that you've been telling yourself. The confident response is different. The confident response is, that's interesting. What do I actually admire here about this person? Is there anything I can learn? What part of this is actually relevant to me and what part isn't? Because half the time, what you're jealous of isn't even what you want. That's the crazy part. It's just what looks impressive. So get brutally honest. Do you want their life, or do you just want to feel like you're winning? I'll let you ponder on that one. There's a big difference. If it's not what you actually want, stop letting it make you feel like you're playing small or not achieving what you should be. Step 4, protect your mind. Be ruthless with the inputs that go into your brain. Because if every time you scroll, you end up feeling like rubbish, you're not consuming content, you're consuming like a form of poison. It's something that is literally eating you alive. So mute the accounts that trigger you. Unfollow if you need to. Not because these people are bad. The only thing they've done is because of where you're up to. Your nervous system that's turning that content, the content that you're seeing, into a form of self-attack right now. So look, things might be different later on. But you can't use that as an excuse for why you're not taking action now. And say, oh, well, maybe I'll change. No, take action now. And if things improve later on, then you can change it later on. Use this as a simple rule if you want to. If it inspires you, keep it. If it makes you feel a bit inferior, then limit it. And if it makes you really hate yourself, remove it. Your attention is a resource, and one that is under attack these days from 1,000 different places. Don't give it away to things that make you doubt yourself or play small. And let me add something here, because people love to use gratitude in a way that sounds like some motivational poster. And I love gratitude, but I'm not interested in that. What I am interested in is perspective, because comparison makes you really quite blind to what's already working in your life. It makes you overlook progress you'd have prayed for a year ago. So here's one simple thing that you can do. Once a day, just ask yourself, what is the one thing that I used to struggle with that I now find a little bit easier? It's a form of gratitude. What's one thing you used to struggle with I find a bit easier now? Could be confidence, fitness, money, relationships, whatever it is. That one question can really drag you back to reality, and it reminds you that you're not stuck. You're just progressing. You've just been staring at someone else's highlight version of their life and forgetting your own journey. Now, the last thing I want to say is this. Comparison is only powerful when you forget the game you're playing. If your game is to impress strangers, good luck with that. You're not going to win, because there will always be, as I've said, someone richer, faster, smarter, than you. There just will be. But if your game is to become the best, strongest, most authentic version of you, well, the people's success, it doesn't threaten anymore. It can become proof that growth is possible. Sure, it becomes information, it can inspire you, but it doesn't beat you down. And it's one of the most freeing mindsets you can possibly have. You stay in your lane, you do your work, you build your confidence that isn't depending on being the best person in the room. You build it based on knowing who you're becoming and based on you becoming a better version of who you were before. So, a bit of a challenge for this week. Pick one comparison that you keep going back to. Could be a person or a metric or a thing, one area where you constantly are measuring yourself against and beating yourself up with. And then do 3 things. Number 1, try and mute that trigger for 7 days. See what happens. Just give your brain a break. 2, start a progress log and write 1 win, 1 lesson, and 1 piece of evidence for the week. And 3, set your personal average for the next 7 days and just try and beat it by a tiny amount. That's it. It's not revelatory, it's not sexy, dramatic, but it will change your life if you actually do it. Give it a go. That's all for today. If you want to work with me to build confidence that doesn't crumble the moment that someone else has a win, then head to joshsuttoncoaching.com to find out more. I'm your coach, Josh Sutton. Let's talk confidence.